Hello and welcome to my view from the piano bench. We do this on Wednesday evenings. I'll upload a new video pretty much every Wednesday here on this YouTube channel. And you know the drill. If you watch regularly, I allow myself to be spontaneous verbally about topics that I'm working through in my own mind or heart, or maybe musical concepts that I can pass along to both musicians or non-musicians, or just reflections on what this ridiculous life as a musician is like. And you've fed back to me that you're interested in this, and that's wonderful. So thank you for watching, and thank you for feeding back, and thank you for support, including the occasional drop in the tip jar, and you can find links for that on the support page on my website. So thank you so much to all of you. Each time that I do this, each week I create a topic, and the topic is typically a jumping off point for me. Back in the day when I started these videos, I would write a whole script and I'd have tunes to play and it'd be themed, and it's much more effective now. I've been doing that since the start of this year, where I'm just allowing myself to not even think about where I'm going to go and allowing it to happen. The topic could be a song title. The topic could be something related to music. Today, the topic is a Vince Guaraldi Christmas. So if you're not aware of it, I've had the opportunity at a venue called the Mainstay in Rock Hall, Maryland, since 2016, Memorial Day specifically, to have an ongoing series of concerts at a venue where nothing like that had ever happened before. And it's been an amazing privilege. And for 4 years, roughly, I had the Mainstay Monday series, and I put on a collaborative show, a new show, every Monday night. Very, very intensive. About 200 of them before it ended with the pandemic. And coming out of the pandemic, what I wanted by that point anyway, a weekly series that's called First Friday with Joe Holt. And this past First Friday show, the First Friday show in December, I did something that, when I thought about it, I was so surprised I'd never done before. 220, 230 shows, and I never put together a Vince Guaraldi / Charlie Brown Christmas tribute thing when we got to that time of year. And of course, I love the music, and even more than that, I just love the whole Peanuts culture, for lack of a better word, what Charles Schulz has done, what the characters portray. And we had a really special First Friday show in December, where I just let all of that out, verbally and musically, with two fine musicians who really helped me pull it off. It was truly a team effort on the musical front by the time we got there. Now, I'm telling you all this in case you don't know that the Mainstay live streams all of its concerts. So you can go to the Mainstay Live Streams YouTube channel, then click on the Live tab as opposed to the Videos tab. There's a few concerts on the Videos tab, but if you go to the Live tab, everything that was live streamed is there. And on that tab, if a show is happening, it's being live streamed, you can watch it live. But you can also watch the archive. And I encourage you to watch the archive of that show. It's really tremendous. Did I just say it was tremendous? But the whole evening was tremendous. It was just a big love fest. Everybody is into the music, and musicians were into being in the moment. It was wonderful. beautiful music. And to me, and to a lot of musicians, the two Christmas songs that really kind of rise to that level of like wonderful sophistication, and nobody minds playing them, even those people who hate Christmas music, which are a lot of musicians, not me. Christmas Time Is Here, plus etc. Now, interestingly, in the collection of music for A Charlie Brown Christmas, and I don't know if it's in, I think it is on the album, but it's also in the sheet music, is that song. Vince Guaraldi played that. I don't think they use it in the soundtrack of Charlie Brown Christmas. And Vince Guaraldi has a unique style and approach just playing anything, and you pretty much know it's him. You know, occasionally I can listen and I think, is it Vince or isn't it? But Vince is one of these people who's recognizable when you hear him. Now, in a different way, for different reasons, obviously. I'm told that about me, and that's a good thing to be told. You know, that you can recognize the individual voice of someone. So a lot of people, for that First Friday show, were telling me that they play that album every year. You know, they break it out around Thanksgiving, sometimes before, and it just gets played for the entire season. And it really is the soundtrack of Christmas for people my age and older and younger. And it's a wonderful soundtrack for sure. And it's obvious that when Vince Guaraldi recorded those tunes, some of them were just little short things because they were going to have an insert somewhere in the show. That's the whole music soundtrack, really. And some he stretched out on and allowed soloing and stuff. And that way it sat there because maybe a little clip or a little piece could be stuck out somewhere. But that particular tune, Christmas Time Is Here, is an intact tune that you hear both instrumentally and vocally and for the show. And the story was vocally that Vince Guaraldi had written that tune instrumentally, but Lee Mendelson, the producer, wanted it sung. And so we had a San Francisco Church Children's Choir. I forget what church, Lutheran perhaps, because that's what Charles Schultz was. And I don't know if you've seen this, but in recent years, one of the like Sunday morning shows on one of the networks, CBS Sunday Morning or one of them, interviewed 3 of the guys who were part of that choir and had them reunite. And I think they said they were paid $15 a piece. I think it was 15, and then that covered everything, and there was no royalties to them or anything like that. Which apparently Vince Guaraldi did to his musicians, or at least in part as well. You know, when you start mixing money and art together, it really gets weird. Because those two things don't belong together until, you know, your art or your artistic expression starts making money, and particularly when you're living off of it. But, you know, balancing the giving nature of art and the taking nature of money, you know, is something else. But the story is that Lee Mendelson decided he needed lyrics, so he sat down at a restaurant or something on a napkin and wrote out the words, "Christmas time is here, happiness and cheer, I remember the last line, oh, that we could always see such spirit through the year. But there's olden times and ancient rhymes and love and dreams to share, etc. And those pieces are intact. And I'm just sort of launching, I'm just talking randomly here. If you watch the live stream video, it's laid out in what I had just sat down and made this whole script up. And I'm trying not to say, at least not have everything I say be things I said on the video in case you watch it. And this is one of them that wasn't said, which I guess is why I'm starting here. But talking about Vince Guaraldi taking his trio and just recording a long tune with jazz improv and stuff, and having it be available for the soundtrack. When you watch the little routine on the video, on the Charlie Brown Christmas special, where Schroeder's playing, after he has this little thing with Lucy, like, can you play Jingle Bells? You know, and Schroeder never satisfies Lucy, which is the ongoing case. And then Lucy finally screams, that's it! And then, you know, Schroeder tumbles back. Not long after that, I think, let me see. Right? And it goes on, which is the swinging part of Linus and Lucy. And it starts there, and Schroeder's playing, and then Snoopy comes and starts happy dancing on the piano. You know, it abruptly stops at one point, and I can hear the notes in my head. I don't want to try to play a note for note what Vince Guaraldi played, but you'll see it abruptly stops. And where it abruptly stops is his recording of Linus and Lucy, where it goes back to the Latin feel. So if you listen to Linus and Lucy, little inside thing, listen to when it goes swinging, and then listen right when it transitions back. And that last little bit is what the soundtrack is for Snoopy happy dancing. Another place where that happened is, I think it's O Tannenbaum, where Charlie Brown, it's playing behind when Charlie Brown takes his Christmas tree home, right? And then he takes one of the ornaments off his dog's, Snoopy's doghouse, because his dog won first prize in the license display contest, of course, and puts it on the tree, and the tree does this, and there's a little figure that Vince Guaraldi does, and then it's strategically taken right from, and I believe it's O Tannenbaum, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct it in the comments. And it's obvious what Vince was doing, you know, and he's provided that, and then people use that. But that's when he said, I killed it. Everything I touch gets ruined. Soon thereafter, Linus says, I never thought it was a bad little tree. It just needs a little love, or something like that. So doing this Vince Guaraldi tribute show really kind of opened my eyes, because a little wider, is I can do kind of deep dives and prolonged exposures to specific things, but usually I flit around. I remember a few Christmases ago, when I set up and tore down my Christmas tree, I played Bill Evans Live at the Village Vanguard CD over and over and over again. And it was my soundtrack for decorating and undecorating my house, which has nothing to do with Christmas, but it's like I was pulled into that deep dive. Well, for this show, I had to self-impose a deeper dive because I needed to write charts. Even if they were basic, I had to really get myself around ahead of time what these arrangements are going to be and who was going to do what and what specifically was being played with the other musicians, because we were doing the show, and I'm not usually in that position. And so I figured the best thing that'll help me for that, and just to get in the vibe, is make a playlist on YouTube of the videos that I'm referencing for this show, and just let it run, and several times a day, for the week leading up to the show, and a little before that as well. I'm listening to the videos, and you know, you're really taken, and I've been already, but I'm reminded, of course, that Vince Guaraldi was a monster player. You know, I don't think he gets the respect in jazz circles from everybody, which I understand, because the jazz circles are really, you know, to listen with a scorecard crowd. You know, there's the same people who don't care for Oscar Peterson. Really? Although Vince Guaraldi plays great stuff, I don't think his, you know, jazz improvisations are really thematically developed and things like that. They're just out there and they go boom, you know, perfect. But he was just a monster pianist as a jazz player. Now, one thing, and I wish I remembered which tune it was. I don't know if it was one of the soundtrack tunes or not, but there's something where he's playing like the Chopin Prelude thing, kind of similar to what Barry Manilow, I think, did for one of his tunes. Could it be Magic or something? I don't know what it was. But I'm listening to it, and it's like, I very much doubt Vince Guaraldi was classically trained, based on how he played that. Because he didn't, what we call, voice the melody out whatsoever. You could hardly tell there was a melody. You know, they're one of the things about playing the piano, and why classical training is so important, because you have to really master, as much as you can, the ability to control everything about the notes sound production by how you press the key down, how you depress the key. There's no button you can push. It changes the effect of anything or does anything differently. You have to be in control of all your fingers all at once. And you spend a lot of time on things like that in classical lessons. And I forget what that tune was, but Vince Guaraldi, I mean, did not voice out the melody whatsoever. I didn't even know what was going on, and I had to, oh, it's that. And when I say voice out the melody, now voicing can mean something different for jazz guys. But in the classical world, can you tell that top note is the loudest of all my notes? I'll try not to do that. You know, it's really hard for me to purposely play incorrectly. But I did like bury that top voicing more than I should have compared to and hopefully, or at least perhaps, you could hear the difference between those two. So, you know, when Vince Guaraldi approached things that were classical in nature, like Schroeder's theme, which is a takeoff on a little Beethoven minuet, I think it's... I mean, technically, he's got a crap ton of technique, and he knows how to use it. But as far as, like, the musical pianistic things that you learn as a classical musician, he doesn't seem to have. Now, somebody could tell me, oh, he took, 10 years from this Juilliard person or whatever. Go ahead and make a fool out of me. But I'd be surprised. And I'm not taking anything away from him. You would say that, a similar kind of thing for different reasons about Earl Garner or Thelonious Monk. And for a lot of jazz guys coming from that angle, you know, playing with European sensibilities was not what they wanted to do anyway. I think in particular Monk, right? But despite some of those pianistic nuances, I didn't practice these thirds. I don't think you can see my right hand, but I'm playing. I'm playing those parallel thirds, which is what Vince Guaraldi did. And I'm playing them slower because I'm fingering them in a way that I can't do it fast. And I guess if it were important enough to me, I would have spent a lot of time practicing it, but I simplified it. And when I'm doing it, you can't see up there. You know what? Moving my hand down here, crossing, actually makes it harder, so. Trust me, I'm using my thumb and I'm not connecting every note, and I'm not doing it in the way I'd want it to, or the way Vince did it. You know, he could pull off some amazing stuff. I don't know a lot about him personally. I think he made it into his early 50s. He died in the 70s, or around 50, or something like that. And he had a heart attack, so he had a shorter life than a lot of us are blessed to have, and oh boy, did he get a lot done. But I have read that he referred to himself as a reformed boogie-woogie piano player, coming into jazz from that. And apparently his nickname was Dr. Funk. And he could really play those alternative styles, you know, those non-swinging styles, the Latin-based styles, you know, which... He nailed it, but he could also swing. He could, oh boy, he swing in the pocket. So, to touch on something that I did talk about on the live stream, is Cast Your Fate to the Wind, which is this thing, 62 or 63. That came first, and that is what motivated Lee Mendelsohn to say, yes, that's the kind of music I want for Charlie Brown. And if you put Cast Your Fate to the Wind and then Linus and Lucy, which obviously was written a few years later, or a little bit later, just like all the Charlie Brown stuff was written after Cast Your Fate to the Wind, it's actually pretty similar, and in this case, in the same key. And then they both have swinging sections, and yeah, they both have a similar ending. So I don't know if Vince Guaraldi was modeling Linus and Lucy after Cast Your Fate to the Wind, but it's certainly close. And he loved those straight A's, you know, Latin feel, you know, semi-rock-ish feel styles. But he could also... You know, and if I wanted to like try to pay tribute to Vince Guaraldi by like suggesting how he sounded like, more important than, you know, playing some of the notes and the figures exactly the way he did, is just getting in the pocket real deep, just really, really swinging. And we accomplished that with the trio for the concert at the Mainstay. And you'll catch that some of the stuff, especially toward the end when I was getting deeper into it, it was really happening and really conveying that spirit of Vince Guaraldi. And then this touches on, this is going to be potentially a little spike out from this. This touches on something that's really been in the front of my mind lately, and I think the last, or maybe last week I think I did the video for this series, Melodies and Grooves. And my little light bulb went on my understanding about, you know, how I approach melodies in terms of feeling them. Grooves in terms of feeling them. You know, I approach melodies and songs that way as well. And when you think of, you know, pianists from that era of jazz, people I've already mentioned, Oscar Peterson, Vince Guaraldi, Earl Garner. Let's use those three. You know, the Jazz Police, yeah, because they're all operating, they had overlap in when they were operating, right? And if you're talking about in the 60s, that overlap, that's when jazz started becoming really harmonically sophisticated and fusion started happening. And it became about really pushing the jazz vocabulary out more than any of those guys did to the jazz, you know, elite or whatever, you know. And of course these days, if you go to college for jazz, it's all about vocabulary. But suffice to say, and if you don't really get this or believe me, it is true. In terms of like hip jazz vocabulary, you know, Oscar Peterson or Earl Garner, Vince Guaraldi, let's use those things. They all have stuff for sure. And they all played with the jazz vocabulary, but not that I'm judging you by how hip you are and what new scale have you figured out today, kind of thing. But the three of them had immense popularity, you know, particularly the music, but them, you know, it's like so many people who might not consider themselves hardcore jazz fans would love to listen to Earl Garner. And who doesn't appreciate Oscar Peterson, right? And Vince Guaraldi, because it all feels so darn good, right? And these, you know, realizations are coming back around to me to really tie up the idea that what I'm about is playing music that feels good, as opposed to like, how cutting edge jazz can I be? I think I told you this when I started my 3 years of kind of more intense than anything before, because I didn't have any before, jazz piano lessons with a prominent Philadelphia area educator in my early and mid 20s. The first thing he said to me in the first lesson, because I was already playing, I played all my life, but I figured I want to like learn about jazz, and I was convinced I wasn't really doing it right until I learned more. Wasn't true, but at least in the way I was thinking it. First thing he said to me was, "Are you sure you want to go through with this, Joe? Because the further down the road you get here, the more you're going to diminish your audience." And I'm like, diminish my audience? No. And I had already had some experience. I didn't have the big showboat experience yet, the one I've talked about before that a sing-along had to do with, but that really informed me that everything is about connecting with the person out there, right? But I knew it's like, no. As I can get deeper into, and what I was understanding is my own process, it's like you just take the person with you, But what he's talking about is that you're learning all this new vocabulary, and even if you're not drawn to it, and I remember him saying something to me like, if you don't get it or it doesn't make sense or you're not so sure about it, trust those experts. Basically, trust these people as your mentors, that it is really good and it is really better and it's really elevated, and go work on it, and then you'll get there and you'll figure that out. But it's like, no. And it's funny, you take your whole life to learn things, and I might have had some understanding of where I've gotten to now back then, but I couldn't articulate it so much. But it's like, now I would say, if it's not something that is really reaching deep in my heart, then it's not what I'm going to most deeply express. Right? So I keep coming back to like the wonderful feelings of particularly Oscar Peterson. He's my guy in that regard. Count Basie rhythm section. But you could also say that kind of thing about Earl Garner and about Vince Guaraldi. Man, it just feels so good. And that's what I'm about. And pulling off this show, this project, at the mainstay, really like reinforced that. And it's like, it's almost like, who cares what notes you play? It's not almost, it is. And just let it sit in the pocket, and let the pocket take you, and then let that pocket form your melodic statement, right? And let that become its own pocket. It was a beautiful experience. And unrelated to this in a way, spinning off in another direction, this whole musician's life, or this jazz life, or whatever, I'm hesitant to use the word jazz because of what it means to most contemporary jazz musicians and how they judge it and categorize it and stuff. But of course, in the classic sense, you have to call this jazz, and I'm a jazz guy in that sense. And a while back, I did a video or two on the idea of like a day job. And I remember one conversation, very frustrating conversation I had with somebody who like wants to understand how, what I actually devote my time to here. And there's so much you can do, practice-wise, administration-wise, booking-wise. There's never enough hours in a day, even for 3 or 4 if I clone myself. If you really wanted to get deep in it, it's like, no, you just go, you do a thing, you make a living, and then you go and you watch Netflix or you play golf. It's like, wait, stop, no. This is an immersive lifestyle, and this is what's been coming to me about that. And it's like, it's not that going to a gig is like going to a job where I make all the money I can so that I can actually, in addition to paying my obligations, enjoy myself and the rest of my life. I'm not under the drudgery of working. No, this is about living an immersive life from like waking up to going to bed in this, and then figuring out a way, me and any other full-time musician, figuring out a way to earn money from it sufficient to be able to maintain what will likely be a more modest lifestyle. But then once you have your obligations taken care of and you have this system where these things you are getting paid for, you can just immerse yourself in music and anything related to music, including building your music business. And because we are so blessed to lead this life. So one thing I should share on my Facebook page. And even if you're not on Facebook, for business and musician pages and artist pages and things like that, as opposed to what they call profiles, which are personal things, anybody can access them, and you don't have to join Facebook to do it. I have not gotten myself on Instagram yet. Eventually I probably will, but anybody can go to facebook.com/Joe Holt's Notes. Is my Facebook handle or name or whatever, and see what's there. I was setting that up for a reason, and now I forgot what that reason was. Well, that was silly. I forgot what it was. And I'm trying to not talk about things that I talked about in the video, but here's what's coming to mind right now. Character themes. So the cool thing about that whole bag, that whole Charlie Brown thing, is there's a theme for everything. This one. It's called Skating, but I don't think you hear that theme when you watch the intro and they're all skating. They're doing Christmas Time Is Here behind that. They do this theme when it's snowing and they're standing by the fence and somebody says, try to catch snowflakes on your tongue. It's fun. And Lucy says, I never eat December snowflakes. I always wait until January. And Linus says, sure looks ripe to me. Need sugar, right? But it's like, isn't that a wonderful theme to go behind that, right? Or the simple little Charlie Brown theme. Wonderful stuff. And I was going to go to Frida's theme after that, but now I'm motivated to say it's really different to play this music or any kind of hard swinging music solo. And I don't think Vince recorded much at all solo. He did a couple of the soundtracky things, because he needed to. Bush Schroeder's theme and, of course, Jingle Bells. Can you play Jingle Bells? No, deck the halls and the ho 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 and mistletoe and presents for pretty girls. That's it, right? So Vince Guaraldi did record, those things by himself, but he wasn't really a soloist, and most jazz guys aren't. And it's wonderful to play this with the rhythm section. Because you can just leave all that down there. You don't have to create that. You can voice your chords. Just a little voicing thing that I can do, but I don't have to play. So this music lends itself to being played with a trio, and that's how we understand it and how we've heard it from good old Vince Guaraldi. So I hesitate to do this, but I'm going to write down the next two things that I want to talk about because they all go out of my head, and I have to go with whatever. I can't read this anyway. So so it won't matter. Frida with the naturally curly hair, the Frida theme. You know, it's funny, I kind of didn't get it for the longest time, because it's just one little figure, and you think, it's like, okay, over and over and over again. And it's like, wait a minute, why does everybody love that? Every musician I work with, like Cody Level, my young sax player friend from Rehoboth, had all his students learn that figure. Yeah, whenever I play with any version of the Schobert Shires, like I was with Amy and Steve last night, and I'm often with Amy and Scott, you know, it's like, let's do Frida, yeah! And I get the, and they're the ones saying it. And sometimes I'll go, you know, but it just becomes this perfectly laid out feeling. That's the point. It's just rhythm changes. It's like a very simple version of I Got Rhythm with a flowery beginning, and that's really it. But I realize, one, motivated by the fact that I was trying to do that in thirds, and I didn't realize that Vince Guaraldi didn't, or at least didn't always, so I didn't need to. So I needed to play it slower, but when I listened to it, after playing it a lot and not listening to it, the original recording, it's nice and relaxed. If it's too fast, it doesn't feel right. And it's like, it's dawning on me. There's a specific zone, you know, speed, metronome, zone, tempo, that these songs just really feel perfect in. And outside of that, they feel less perfect. So it's so much about feeling. So for this show, I got all the tunes together. We had 17 tunes. And it turns out we needed all of them. And I didn't think we would, but we did. So, not forgetting one, I think now, but you know, one that we threw in during the show that in case we needed it, and we did, was Little Blue Charlie Brown, which is just a little blues. And I actually played the head wrong, I think, but it's so simple, it doesn't matter. And then for an encore, because I ended with Christmas Coming. Christmas is Coming. Oh, let me talk about that too. That's funny. So I figured if we need to do an encore, and we did, and you'll see this in the standalone video post. If you're on Facebook, I loaded to Facebook, but also to YouTube, the single tune post is less than 3 minutes long, or around 3 minutes long, of Hark the Herald Angels Sing, maybe 4 minutes long. And my plan was, okay, to take that, which is the last thing that you hear in the or see in the show. Then when Charlie Brown comes out and is, what's going on here? And they fix his tree all up. It's Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. And they all start singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. And I figured, okay, if we have to do an encore, I'll just start playing. You know, hymn accompaniment like. Now, on the recording for the special, Vince Guaraldi played it on an organ, and it sounds like church, right? But I think I accomplished that in piano. And then you could hear, if you watch the video of Hark the Herald Angels saying, use my name, go on YouTube, you can find it. You could hear the people sort of humming, oohing, and singing. Not really loudly, but they were doing it from the audience. You can hear it underneath. It was really nice. And I figure, although Vince Guaraldi didn't do this, I figure it would be perfectly fine. And once I get to the end, you could do exactly what you did with O Tannenbaum. You could just start a gentle swing. So, as long as you can start feeling a nice groove, then that's that happy Vince Guaraldi place, and that turned out to be really nice. So that was my thought behind that encore. So for Christmas is coming. Okay, let's talk about quoting. And those of you who know me know that at any moment, some unrelated tune is going to come out of the, whatever. It's going to rise up like a whack-a-mole where it's not supposed to be and show up in the middle of tunes. And, occasionally it'll be on purpose if I'm trying to be silly. Like I quote, I'll take Manhattan, or I'll take a Manhattan or something. In every place it doesn't belong. But typically those quotes just happen involuntarily, and I watch them happen, and then everyone's aware of it, including me, at the same time. And a bass player friend of mine from back in the day would call it my Tourette's. But I just got this idea, and I don't know if it was the most musical thing, but you'll hear it if you watch the live stream video to the very end of the concert, before the encore, when we did Christmas is Coming. Right? We get to the end. We're vamping. And of course I had to plan this ahead with the guys because harmonically we had to make the adjustment. And I'm glad I did because Tom Baldwin didn't know the tune. Last Train to Clarksville, which is like a Monkees tune from the 60s. So I may make a standalone post of that, just to get Last Train to Clarksville out there. So that was my one maniacal, ridiculous thing that I did for that show. That was such an intense, you talk about an immersive life. It's an intense life too. It's like, this is going to sound dramatic, but when I go in that deep for a performance, I'm kind of immobilized into the next day, and it's like, I'm just, I got rest, I'm okay, but it's just like, the only thing I could do was come over to the piano and make more music. And it wasn't until Saturday evening that I started to like, okay, one foot in front of the other, here we go, because for a lot of us who do this, we put ourselves in this emotional place. Some guys who just, they do what they do and then they walk away from it, and then and I think Oscar was like that, and there's the cerebral component and all that, but no, not for me. When it really gets there, whoo, you know, and that was, I think I said on Mike at the end, man, I'm exhausted. But of course, I keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it because it's there to be done. Just don't ask me to, like, you know, pick something up off the floor until I recuperate. Yeah, so let's talk about this for a minute. So Vince Guaraldi's tunes all have, I don't want to say formulaic, but they are kind of signature elements. Wait a minute. Wow, I'm going to mess that up. Let me not try it. No, yeah. That kind of harmonic thing, you know, Vince Guaraldi does a lot. And I told you how, like, Gladys and Lucy is similar to Cast Your Fate to the Wind. And then a couple of tunes, he takes just a regular, easy blues. Just plays off of that like you would play a generic blues on any gig with a musician, or what we call rhythm changes, which is I've Got Rhythm. First A, second A. Bridge. I played it all the way through in that key because I want you to hear me play Frida all the way through. It'll be slower, but it's the exact same foundation, just a different notes on top. Struggle to keep the emotional thing going there because I'm thinking about, oh, the next thing I want to say is. But that was I've Got Rhythm, you know, without I Got Rhythm. Yeah. So I realized, and the last place I'll go here, I think, after the show was over, that I didn't mention the purposeful insert of the Christmas story reading from the book of Luke, and how controversial that was. I did, and the Charles Schulz was the only one who wanted it in. And of course, this was his realm, so he got to have his way. And I think he said when everybody, including the whole production team, was objecting about inserting the Christmas story, is if we don't do it, it's either who will or who can. Right? And they did it. And the only reason the show got aired is because they were running late in their production, and the network execs didn't get to see it until 2 weeks before the advertising had already started. And they hated every part of it, including the religious reference. You know, and of course the whole thing was about the commercialization of Christmas. And when you think about it, 1965, Christmas special, that was like the last thing of its kind that really kind of centered on the traditional meaning of Christmas, right? Yeah, and those things weren't supposed to be a part of television. That, or, you know, children having, you know, complex philosophical thoughts, and, you know, Lucy in a psychiatric booth, and maybe you have pantophobia. Pantophobia? What's pantophobia? The fear of everything. That's it! See, it served Lucy right to be knocked over backwards when Charlie Brown said that's it, because she did it to Schroeder when he finally played Jingle Bells the right way, with a scowl on his face. That's it! Which I think right after that maybe was, okay, script, no, okay, stop, Joe. I'm going through and I'm now like retelling the whole chronology of the show. I'll repeat one other thing I said in the concert that you'll see in the video live stream if you watch it. So years ago, the night that the Charlie Brown Christmas was being aired on network television, and that's how you had to watch it. I did have a VHS tape, but no other way to watch it. I was working, and I was working in the upscale steakhouse that had jazz in the bar all the time, and it was on the TV. The TV was set to the right channel. During my set, the set covered that half hour, right? But the sound was off, and I spoke the whole dialogue while I'm watching it, while I'm playing the gig. That was so much fun. Yeah, my mind was coming back to Violet and Pigpen. And Pigpen saying, on the contrary, I didn't think I looked that good. Yeah, what elementary school kid says, on the contrary? You know? So anyway, you can tell I get really excited about this. And if you're not a fan of the Charlie Brown Christmas, find a way to watch it anyway. You know, now because it does really warm your heart. How can it not? Now, lots of people are sad, particularly people my age, who want the world to always be what we all want the world to be, how it was when we were coming up. And when we were coming up, it was network television, and the 3 channels, and then the 6 channels, and then at a certain time this was being played and everybody could watch it. You just watch the commercials, and that's how it was. And then, you know, when the networks are ready to drop Charlie Brown, you know, just in very recent years, Apple TV picked it up. Of course, Apple TV is a prescription, it's a subscription, not a prescription. I don't need to go to a doctor. A subscription service. And a lot of, you know, older school people like me are like, they make you pay for a Charlie Brown? Yeah, well, that's where it's going. You're going to pay for everything, right? But it's sad that it's just not going to be in everybody's home if they want on a certain night at Christmas time. I do understand why Charles Schultz's widow made that deal with Apple to have the exclusive rights, because one, a lot of people watch Apple TV, but two, they agreed to create new content. And for a while I had a subscription to Apple TV just so I could watch the Snoopy show. And they were really true to the original, you know, vibe and the original thing. So I gave them a lot of credit for that. So Charlie Brown doesn't live on, and that every kid is going to see it from now on. And 20, 30 years from now, every younger person is not going to know it like they do now. That's going to change. And that's like a sad thing, because we think that it's always been everybody's loved Charlie Brown. But no, it's just our generation. It's our thing. So the real last thing I'm going to say is I made a friend, another pianist out in Sun Valley, and I did talk about him in one of these one of these videos, Jim Martinez. And I did a 2-piano set with him, and we really hit it off. And I come to see on Facebook that apparently he's the official guy for the Charlie Brown Enterprise, for the Charles Schultz thing, you know, the Charles Schultz Museum, the whole thing. It's out in California, that goes out and does the Charlie Brown Christmas, you know, theme shows. Apparently it was all around the country before, and now he's cutting back. He had like 7 or 8 or 9 of them, and he's in Texas here, he's in Colorado here, you know. And it's really a coveted place to be in when he's got like the access to the licensed characters, and good grief, it's Jim Martinez, or good grief, it's still Jim Martinez. And there's, you know, Charlie Brown and Snoopy, and he's playing it at the Charles Schultz Museum, you know, which I need to go to California and see. I follow their stuff on Facebook page, you know, and that's cool for him, and I want to message him and talk to him about that. It's like we all get these little things that become ours because of the contributions we can make, and they become things that, like, other people says, well, I want that too, but you know, we just have to find our way to those things that are for us. And like for me, it's hosting all those shows at the Mainstay. That's a big one, you know. And I know that there are people who have, I was going to use the word resented. You know, it's like, oh, he's doing that, I want to do that. And I know that I've been made aware that, you know, there's been attempts to knock me off my perch over there. Yeah, but the thing is, I never sought that perch. I don't know what the relationship is with Jim Martinez and the Charles Schultz Museum. But, you know, it's just, you make your contribution. Been thinking about this lately, too. You just make your contribution, and it takes you to where that contribution can best be made or better be made, you know? And, yeah, you market and you do all that, but you really just, like, get your contribution down. Show up to the gig and open it all up. And that's what I felt really happened for that. I think Matt called it, It's Almost Christmas, Charlie Brown, if you look at the live stream video. Okay, I'm not even making sense when I talk anymore. But maybe you got something out of this that was helpful, useful, funny, or, you know, ridiculous, and you like ridiculous. Thanks for continuing to watch this. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.